Hello, this is Anna Imagination. Welcome to Shifting Perspectives. We're going to talk about I and you. They are in the wrong place. How do I explain this? Well, quite easily. Well, when you think of I and you think of it as I and you. It's two-dimensional. That's what that is. That is two-dimensional placement. But the I and the you does not belong in two dimensions. That's the problem. And when you move it, it changes its meaning. So we're going to do this. I love the word am. The word am is also two-dimensional. It can mean am, as in, wow, when you take away the word am, what words can replace it? Located. Oh, I love this. The word am can mean located, but it can also mean something else. It can mean a state of being, like I am tired. In this case, you are not in a place of, actually, you are in a place of. You're in a place of being tired. I am at the store. That is being in the place at the store. It's placement. I am. So am is placement. But there's one other way it can be used. I am Anna. That's not placement. Actually, it is. It's point. So why do we use placement to define our own name? Now, that isn't the point. What is the point is the phrase, I am home. Now, when we say this word, we are thinking placement. I am home. Change it so that home means your name. I am home. When you can see it, you have now changed the position of I. I is no longer a movable point. I is suddenly the grounding center. It goes from being this point that you move all over the map to being a solid center. I am home. You is the same way. You always genuflex to I. You always adheres to the I. Always. Now, we are both I and you at the same time. We are I and all and many. In the I, we are all home. As a you, that's when we decide to take on a different role. One of my favorite triads is the king, the queen, and the imp. This is one that has been, let me see if I can get it up here without the glare. There it is. Now, this is fascinating. This is like one of my favorite little riddles. I have an imp king, I have an imp queen, and I am the king queen. There you go. I think that's focused. And it looks something like that. And because there are 3 parts, you can only take on 2 parts at the same time, which means you are almost invariably always lacking one of the parts. We must have 3, which is why the 3-3-3 keeps coming up all the time. But when we draw a triangle, we often forget that there must be a center point in that triangle to determine this is the point, this is the center. And that is the center point, which is why there's actually 4 triangles within 3, which is where you get the 12 from. It's extraordinary. I slept all day yesterday, and then I slept all night. And I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to figure out how to tell all of this. Technically, I already have. That's all I've been doing is telling all of it. And now I'm just sitting here going, I don't know if I have much more to tell. I have to tell my partner, and I don't know how. I have no idea how. I've been putting together a plan. I'm calling it a societal experiment. And that is Authenticity City. Authenticity City is a societal experiment. Now, yesterday, when I was falling asleep, I was thinking about the best way to do this. First of all, this is higher learning. Most people are not going to be able to understand this. You have to study geometry before you can grasp this. Now, the first thing are my set of rules. I read them yesterday to you. My set of rules are very important. I wrote another one this morning. I decided that we are going to be changing everything, or we are going to be changing nothing. Because the moment you start changing things, that's when people get scared. So everything has to stay the way it is for a while. Well, until people are ready. And once we change the mindset, then we can change the atmosphere. That way people aren't scared. Pretty much the primary goal is to unlearn all of our prejudices, and that's including the first one, gender prejudice. The oldest prejudice in the world is gender prejudice. We have to unlearn that. Compliments of the Barbie movie. Thank you. There's a reason why it was released when it was. Because it gets to show you exactly how ugly the prejudice is, which is why I hated the movie so much. Now, rule number 1 is do not scare the children. That is the first rule. That will always be the first rule. The best way to keep the children calm is by not getting scared and making them laugh. That's rule number 2, make the children laugh. Laughter is the universal sign that everything is okay. So right now, laughter is really important. You want to calm your children? Laugh. Rule number 3, trust the process. I will be following the 12 stages of growth and walking everyone through them. It's optional. Everything here is a choice. You don't have to. If you decide to, you must complete it. You cannot quit this halfway through. Now, agree on the rules, but allow and respect for autonomy number 1. You can have rules, but you cannot forget the first rule. Now, ironically, there are 3 rules in number 4 that I hid in there because I love riddles and things like that. Agree on the rules, but allow and respect the autonomy of one. The autonomy of one. Now, autonomy of one can be, remember rule number one, and it's always remember the first ethic, and it is remember the one. Have rules, but you must remember the one. You must remember the self. 5, hold yourself accountable. This is going to be the biggest one. Look inward. Never accuse others, for always that is projection. Blaming is a projection of your own failure every time. We say things like, when you point at somebody, you've got 3 fingers pointing back. That's crude. So instead, we're going to say, accusing others is a projection of your own self. Always. There's a lot of little things that we got wrong the first time around. Not wrong. Rome purposely changed them. So we're going to change them back. Remember one. Now, remember one is the 6th rule and the 6th perspective. That is what you are supposed to be learning. The 5th rule is accountability, and it is the 5th ethic. You'll find that my rules and the ethics are the same thing. 7, listen. It is the other side of talking. Listening is step 1 of communication. Talking is step 2 of communication. And I want to say number 9 was about dignity, which leads to articulation. So number 1 through 6 is about observing. Number 7 through 12 is about learning. Technically, this is all learning. This is how we do it. So we observe, and then we listen. 8 is communication 101. 9 is, oh, that mouth goes far, doesn't it? Try a little dignity. So number 9 is dignity. Number 10, allow the emotions. Read them, use them, wield them. Create energy right before your eyes. And then 11, is when you can see that perspectives are dimensions. Allow the emotions. We have this attitude, this belief that we're supposed to suppress emotions. No, we are not. Emotions are the key to this. I don't know what 11 is. I just got here. Don't force the evolution. Step back. Hands off. Allow the one to just listen to the one heart lead by example. There can only be one. And we are also one. There are ones. There are one ones. And then there are one yous. Actually, there's one one. One one one. One 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 one. And then there are you ones. And then there are, yeah, I see it now. I see where we are different. My partner is a U1, which means sometimes he's got to lead, sometimes he can follow. A lot of times he follows. I can never follow. Never. Every time I follow, I am not okay. Now, hypothetically, and I really want to say this, I know I'm not the only one. I am not the only one. Every one of us is a one. And that's going to be the hard part. There's going to be one of two things here. Why do you get to be the one? And then there's going to be me telling people, yeah, we are all ones and we all need to be the one. We all need to assume the one of our lives. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't feel like they deserve that. Imposter syndrome is going to kick in. Now, Rome did that on purpose. There are a million little subconscious obstacles that Rome put in place to make sure you don't become one. Because the minute any one of us becomes one, this whole thing of theirs falls apart, which is why they built it the way they did. Because their goal was to prevent any one of us from becoming this. Because once the first one, it all waterfalls, which is what happened. Well, will happen. I see things all at the same time. So here's how this is going to work. I have to unravel this. Now, I've already unraveled it. That's what this whole podcast is. And I know how to present it. I just got to figure out a plan. I need a plan. And that's what this is. This is the plan. I have one case study. And I watch her. Every time she is not the one, her life falls apart. And then I coach her and I remind her, you got to be the one. Your life falls apart every time you are not assuming the role of one. These are roles. I and you are roles. The problem is when you are an I, I'm going to say it again. When you acts like an I, it solves the problem. We are all I's, but we're all behaving like yous. That's the name of my children's book. When I becomes you. So my first question is, do I start at the top? I do start at the top. From the dream down. So my target is going to have to be the most educated in our society. That is my niche. Because they will already have most of the education in place to pull this off. And they have the ethics. And they have the finances and the power already in position to get it done. Now, there are tiers of power that most people are not aware of. So I'm going to go through this with you. There is the foundational tier, and then there is the cultivator tier, and then there is the visionary tier. Most people in this world do not know that these three tiers exist. Because we're oneists, they only see one tier at a time. That is going to be a common theme. Oneists struggle seeing more than one. So right now, the majority of people can only see the one tier that they are in. Now, when you get to the second tier, cultivator, you can see both cultivator and one. And when you get to visionary, you can see all three of them. But there's a tier above that, a fourth tier. There are 12 tiers total. I just entered the fourth tier. Well, I'm preparing to enter the fourth tier. The first three tiers is 1 through 4. Technically, it's 1 through 3, but the 4s lead the 3s. And then there is 5 and 6. Technically, it's 4, 5, and 6. The 6s follow the 5s and the 4s. This is where the cultivator tier has a lot of prejudice. Now, the 4s, this is important, are followers. They are the biggest followers of the group. That's really important. If a 5 or a 6 comes along and tells a 4 that we're changing the rules, 4s will follow quite obediently without a problem. Now, fortunately, 1, 2, and 3 follows 4. So if we change 4's rules, we can pretty much have 4 do whatever it is we need them to do. So I'm not worried about 4. We don't have to give them education yet. We don't have to, oh, we will be, but bear with me. They're going to be the easiest to switch things over to. There's going to be a lot of noise and complaining. They're going to need a lot of soothing and comfort, but it's not going to be a problem. All you have to do is change the rules. With a lot of whining and complaining, they will go with this flow and change. And then 1s, 2s, and 3s will follow because 4 has them under their hierarchy. Now, they need a hierarchy. The problem is, this is where we stopped growing. We kept the hierarchy past the 4th because we learned self-government. Now, at that point, the hierarchy needs to go away. So the hierarchy is going to stay in place for the first 4 perspectives. They need it. That is very important to them. If we take it all away, they will have chaos. This is why I was going so slow. This is why I can't manifest. If I can manifest and do this shit, I'd be scaring a lot of people, which is what happened to Christ. He scared a lot of people because he did this wrong. So, and I could feel it. My subconscious mind kept saying, no, it's not safe. It's not safe. And I'm going, all right, now I understand why. Because I cannot be throwing around these theories. This story, it's not a theory. It's my fact. There is no such thing as theory. I really need to get that out of the vocabulary. Theories do not exist. Theory does not exist. There is no such thing as a theory. Theory, the word itself, literally destroys the I. There is no such thing as theory. Change your thinking. Now, and that's what we're doing here. So the 4s are not a problem. 5s require proof. The 5s, of course you do, which is why I do the work I do on shifting perspectives, which is why this had to be so logical. 5s require the logic. They require the proof and the evidence. Most cultivators are 5s, and that's fine. Now, once they get this, that's going to take care of that. 6s can feel it. No work needs to be done with the 6s. They can feel it. So there it is. You know, it's amazing. Every time I meet a 6, they're so determined to convince me that what they feel is right. They're like, don't call me crazy. I can feel it. And I'm just going, I know. I felt it all my life. Yeah. When you get to stage 6, you can feel the other dimensions around you. They're just other dimensions. That's all it is. You can feel the dimensions. It's amazing. These are why hippies are so weird. It's because they can feel the dimensions, but they can't see it. So 5s are run by logic. They have to have the evidence. They have to have the proof. They are our beautiful, ever-loving, doubting Thomases in the world. And they should be. We need them. My partner is one of them. And he is my biggest crux right now. So I do not even need to speak to 1, 2s, and 3s. We saw that happen with 2s. 2s would be the most stubborn. But I have been watching over the last 40 years how 2s change from literally killing people like Matthew Shepard to painting rainbows on the outside of their churches to say, oh, please come in. We love all colors, races, and genders. Sexualities, we need to open up to genders. We need to remove the final prejudice, which means we all need to stop using terms like masculine and feminine. And I do mean it. Stop using the words. Because every time you use a word, you embed that prejudice even deeper. Stop using the words. We need new words. An I, a you, and a they. Those are the new pronouns. I, you, they. Welcome to the new pronouns. Wow, I saw that very clearly. Wow, did I see that? Wow. Holy shit, that's beautiful. I, you, they. Those are your new pronouns. If you want them. Again, this is all a choice. All right. The only choice you do not have is quitting. If you decide to take on triadic healing, you have to finish it. Because this whole thing started because Alexander the Great quit halfway through the schooling and then sold the secrets over to Rome. And then Rome did this shit. And boom, now we have an invasive dimension inside of this dimension, which is the problem. So finish the course. And if you don't know if you can finish it, don't start it. Prioritize this course and finish it, or don't start it. You don't have to start it, but if you do, it has to be a priority. Now, originally I started with the idea of, well, you can take it as far as you want. Now, technically, that is very true. Actually, there are breaking points, which is part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 is taking it to the sixth perspective. So you can literally get right to the sixth perspective. And if you don't want to go on, you don't have to. You can wait. So part 1 literally takes you through the first 6 perspectives. Part 2 takes you from 7 to 12. Well, I'm not at part 3 yet. That's 12. That's going to be 13 to 18. See, I don't see it that way. It's not 13 to 18. Okay, so this is what I see. Right now where I'm at is number 1. No, I'm not. Yes, I am. Go with it. I am a 1 here. I am 1. The first time you find the I, you are officially in stage 1. And it's basically, oh, I see what she did because she does this. I do this. It's the beginning and the end. The moon is day 30 is day 1. That's exactly what it is. So 12 is 1. Kind of 13 is 1, actually. That's what it is. 13 and 1 are the same. Which is why Christ, the 13th, had 12, because he was the 1 and they were the 12. 13 and 1 are the same thing. Those numbers are interchangeable. Which is why they made us afraid of the 13. They were actually trying to subconsciously make us afraid of the 1. There's a lot of little shit like that through all of our history where they hide 1 from us. And they forced us to think like yous. And that's the problem with our society, is we are thinking like a bunch of yous when we're all ones. They have literally removed the 1, the I, from all of us. And then they put all these obstacles and guilt and shame. So arrogance is the first emotion to be a 1. You have to be arrogant. You have to be selfish. Now, every one of these words is not a bad thing. You have to be narcissistic. Oh, that's going to be a fun one to try and explain to people. If you get angry when I write this list, I need you to calm down and keep your mind open, and I will be explaining it. Arrogance, selfish, narcissistic, confident. Boy, they did a very good job, didn't they? Rome was very thorough. What other words aren't we allowed to be? Self-centered, that's another one. Every one of these words. Now, I'm going to show you about narcissism, because that's one I know is going to kick up a lot of screaming. Narcissist is actually a misnomer. And they did that on purpose. Oh, and what's your name? Pygmalion. Pygmalion is the other one. Authority. Author. Authenticity. This just keeps going on and on. These are all the little things that make up 1. These are all the traits of 1. And every one of them has literally been banned from our society through shame and guilt. Isn't that fascinating? Now, let me show you how. So, narcissist is a misnomer. When we hear it, we think, oh, they're only thinking of themselves, which is actually the irony because they're not thinking of themselves. They have rejected the self so much that there is absolutely nothing left of the self. When we look at the condition, the behavioral condition of narcissism, we are actually looking at a human being that lacks so much self love that they literally have zero amount inside of them. Narcissism is the result of absolute, full, and total self loathing. When you look at the Greek myth of Narcissus, he loved himself so much that he literally could not take his eyes off of his own reflection, and he died that way. Now, this is the irony. This is the misnomer. A narcissist actually does not love themselves. Not at all. They are the most self loathing. Yet his namesake was truly in love with himself. So the reason why this was done was so that if somebody does become one and they say you have to love yourself, people will immediately assume that they are thinking about narcissism and they will reject it because they don't want to be a narcissist. So our society was on purpose conditioned to associate self-love with narcissism, even though psychologically it is the exact opposite. Rome was very clever. Arrogance was the one that was the most intriguing to me. About 3 days ago, I made a comment to my partner. No one is smarter than me. Now, my partner does not know the work I do. And if anyone were smarter than me, there'd be other people before me seeing dimensions like I see them. And so far, I'm not seeing anyone who does this work. No one does this work. Therefore, well, because I'm the first one, I'm the smartest, which is why I'm the leader, which is why I'm one. He told me I needed humility. It really bothered me. Just because you have arrogance does not mean you don't have humility. Arrogance, according to the definitions, is an inflated self-importance. If you can prove it, it's not arrogance. Conceit, that's another word. I've been looking up all of these words. These were the last bit of obstacle that I had to get over because I could feel it inside of me. And I'm like, no, there is someone there. There is something there. I can feel it holding back. I can feel this barrier and I want the barrier gone. Oh, I got the barrier gone. The barrier was an aversion to all of these labels. That was the final barrier. I had an aversion to all of the oneist labels. And these are it. These are the oneist labels. Arrogance, selfish, narcissistic, confident, self-centered, Pygmalion, authority, author, authenticity, self-love, conceit, ego. Ooh, that's another word they dirtied up for us. How convenient. So every one of these words has something in common. It's been soiled. So we have a very negative connotation with these words, making us have an aversion to these words. The human condition is so averse to these words that they are actually used a lot less than swear words. We'll say fuck before we say these words. In fact, thank you, my dear. Where are you, my beautiful love? I don't see her here. Ayn Rand's Anthem, the word. Well, read the book. Read the book. That's my point. You know, I was thinking about her, and I'm wondering if she could see the other dimensions. I don't think she completed the work. No, she lacked the third perspective. She did not do the full work. She lacked triadic healing. See, In order to get here, there's two requirements. You have to have the open mind. You have to have the role of discipulus. And you have to have triadic healing. Because if you do not go through triadic healing, you will lack the first 6 ethics, and it won't be possible. Ayn Rand had some serious problems with 1 and 3. That woman did not learn the first ethic, which is why she smoked. And she did not learn the third ethic, which is why she was so bitter. Learning the third ethic teaches you to not be bitter. It is the hardest one to learn. Now, she was responsible, she was accountable, but my God, that woman did not trust anybody. She was a narcissist. Ayn Rand was a narcissist. Now, so her theories were all mostly correct. She just, yeah, she was definitely lacking the first and the third ethic. She had the second ethic down, resourcefulness, but she was lacking the first and the third. So when you combine triadic healing with an open mind and the role of student, then you can get through all of this. Now, triadic healing will take care of your mental. Oh my God, that is such, it seems so long ago now. It is such, I'm going to say something. In perspective, getting rid of mental illness is so easy if you know how to do it. I show you how to do it. That is going to be one of the side effects, is you get rid of mental illness with this. That happens once you learn the 5 ethics. 6 ethics. You need to learn the first 6 ethics. That's all it is. Every mental illness is just a lacking of the 6 ethics. That's all it is. And depending upon which mental illnesses you have, depend upon which of the 6 ethics you're lacking. For instance, if you're an alcoholic, I hate that word. It's such a label. If you struggle with substance abuse or addiction, if you struggle with suicide, depression, let's set depression aside. If you struggle with self-harm or binge eating, any kind of eating disorders, you lack the first ethic. The first ethic is self-management, self-love, and self-regulation. Mostly self-comfort. And stage 1 is actually just going to be me. Oh, I am so doing this their way. Oh my God. Oh, that explains so much. So for the next month, there are 12 months. Oh, I just saw how my classes are going to roll out. The first month of my classes is going to be nothing but the self. We're going to take 30 days, 30 moon days, and we're just going to talk about self-management, self-care, self-love, self-regulation, and we are going to break down the self. When we are done, you should have the first ethic in place, which is a solid foundation of the self, the I. The second month, we're going to talk about your resources. And we're going to go over how to find your own skills inside of you. That's all we're going to focus on, your resources, your skills. And we're going to do this through play and imagination, because that's how we find out what we can do. We do this through story, because that is what we are. That is what I am. That is what I is. What I is. That is going to be one of my lectures that I give. What I is. And that grammar is correct. So it's resources, it's skills, it's building, it's make-believe. And then the third month, this is what we call the independent stage. I like to refer to it as Lord of the Flies. Now, when you are in this stage, you're going to need boundaries because you're going to have to completely tell everyone to shut up and fuck off. And that's exactly it. This is the shut up and fuck off stage. Now, when we were 3, we're not allowed to tell our parents to shut up and fuck off. And we should have. If we had, this never would have happened. The shut up and fuck off stage is when you basically say, all right, I'm going to take my first ethic and my second ethic, and I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to see what I can do. And that's what it is. It is the age of self-exploration. The problem is, if you do not have the ability to self-explore or that freedom, you're never going to learn the ethics that come out of it. And that is the problem. 4th perspectives love to put everybody in their boxes, and they cannot handle the chaos of 3. And that's really it. The chaos of 3. Oh, isn't that funny? The chaos of 3. None of us could handle the chaos of 3. God forbid there be 3 genders. No. This is all about avoiding the chaos of 3. I see it now. Oh. We are molecules, and molecules have to have a network, and the network is always 3. One of you is the first ethic, the other is the second ethic, and the third is the third ethic. Oh, this makes so much more sense. The third ethic is the transgender. That's the neutral, the one that brings both of elements 1 and 2 together. It's the soup. I am the self, the ego, the I. I struggle with my resources. My partner is highly resourceful, but because he lacks I, he doesn't know it. So the second perspective is you. The first perspective is I. The second perspective is you. The third perspective is they. But they is absolutely cut out because the 4ths can't handle the chaos of 3. So the 3s are forced to be a 4s because we're binary, because we're oneists. And the oneist became prejudice, which is the problem. So the 4s love their laws. They love their order. They love their rules. But they do so at the expense of the I, and that's where they go wrong. They sacrifice the I. It's a mindset of law and order above all else, no matter what. And they put the I in charge of the laws and the orders. The problem is, well, this is the problem. We're all arguing now over who is the I. And the laws and the orders, because they're all made by the yous. Yeah, 4th perspective is a land of no I. It's all just a bunch of yous. And this is the problem. This is what happens when you take the I out of everything. And that's all that happened. Literally, the 4th perspective just took I out of everything. 5th perspective puts it back. That's accountability. You see, you can't be accountable or self-governed if you have no I. So the 5th perspective has the I, but it has forgotten the you. That is usually the problem with the 5th perspective. The 4th perspective is screaming, it's all about you. And the 5th perspective says, no, it's all about I. And the 6th perspective learns, no, it requires I and you. And that's what the 6th perspective is trying to learn. I and you. Once you get those lessons down, now you're ready for stage 7. So the first perspective is learning about I. The second perspective is learning about you. The third perspective is learning about they. The fourth perspective is all about you, and they have to learn that there is an I in you. The fifth perspective has to learn that there is a you in I. The sixth perspective has to learn how to have I and you together. Yep. And in order to do that, you require the first 6 ethics, which you learn as you learn these placements of I and you. Now, the 7th. Once you get to that level, now you are ready to start learning. Communication is the lesson. Now, there are 3 stages to communication: the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th. The 7th stage of communication is listening. The 2nd stage of communication is talking. And listening and talking. When you listen, you are focused on the I. When you talk, you are focused on the you. I think that's reversed. It is reversed. When you listen, oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh, you gorgeous thing, you. Oh my God, I love logic. When you listen, you're focused on the I. When you talk, when you listen, you're focused on the you. When you talk, you're focused on the I. At the 9th perspective, you listen and you talk, so you learn how to balance I and you. Now, I just had a thought and it just clicked something else into place, and it was so beautiful. Forgiveness. Forward giving. This is when you start to learn forward giving. You can't even begin to understand forward giving until you go through stages 7, 8, and 9. At the 10th perspective, you can learn and understand forgiveness. No one can do forgiveness prior to this point because it requires the first 9 ethics. Which is why a lot of people are talking about forgiveness, but no one can actually say what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is forward giving. I'm going to explain it in a minute here. So when you listen, you are actually practicing forward giving. You are allowing them to speak before you. You are putting you before I. That's what it is. You goes before I. And that is forward giving. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Oh my God, that is so stunning. So in my other model, when we step back into psychology, we have, let me think. We have control and vulnerability. The gift is vulnerability. That is what we are giving. Vulnerability is the I. It is when the I becomes you. That is what forgiveness is. That is what giving is. It's when the I becomes you. Oh, wow, I see it. Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh my God, that is so beautiful. All right, let me explain it. You is always second place. The only way you gets to be I is when I decide that you get to be number 1. Otherwise, so I can hoard. That's the problem. I can hoard. So you must have you to balance it out. You is the sharing. I is the hoarding. And I knows this. So I allows you the ability to take stage 1. This is forgiveness. This is giving. It's when I allows you to be one. In my world, that's important. That's humility. Oh, that's been bothering me for a long time. What is humility? Oh, there it is. Oh my God, that took way too long to find. Humility bothered me. I couldn't figure it out. You can't understand humility until you get to the 10th perspective, 11th, actually. No one can. Oh, that explains everything. We did not understand what humility is. No, no, no. That is an 11th perspective emotion. No, we're throwing that word around. Forgiveness is being thrown around. Humility is being thrown around. Humble is being thrown around. We don't know what these words mean until you get to the 10th and 11th perspective. Oh, that makes so much more sense. Oh, it's been bothering me for so long. People going, oh, well, this is what it means. And I'm going, that's not what that word means. Because if you had studied language in the 7th, 8th, and ninth perspective, then you can look at words like forgiveness, humility, and humble and go, there's something going on. Now, I notice that humility and humble have the same HUM to them. My question is, what does it mean? It means a modest or low view of one's own importance, of one's important. That's not correct. Mm-mm. Wow. You know what other word begins with HUM? Human. Wow. What does HUM mean? Let's look up humility etymology. Oh, is this going to be fun? Humilis, humilatus, humilite, humility, humble, humility. Oh, Latin, humilitas. I want to know what HUM means in Latin. All right, let's do this. HUM with a little dash that tells me, and it is a prefix. Prefix meaning. Hum, root, Latin, ground. Ooh, this meaning is found in words such as exhume, humble, humiliate, humility, humus, posthumous, and human. It means the ground. I. Now, isn't that interesting? Fascinating. Human means the ground. That is fascinating. That is really fascinating. I think humility is a choice. When, see, when it's consensual, it means something, but when it's non-consensual, it changes the meaning entirely. So if you have humility and it's consensual, completely different ballgame. That's actually forgiveness. That is forward giving. But if it's non-consensual, which a lot of narcissists, a lot of people have that confused with, it's no longer humility. It becomes something else. All emotions have 4 parts to them. There is the withdraw negative, withdraw positive, and then there's the deposit negative and deposit positive. So once you understand that emotions move with 4 different fluidities, 2 positive and 2 negative, withdraws and deposits, completely changes the game. There's always a giver and a receiver of every emotion, always. It can be no other way. As a result, now you have a consensual side and a non-consensual side. The non-consensual side has a negative positive flow, and the consensual side has a negative positive flow. Abuse happens when it's non-consensual. When it's consensual, it's giving. So that's really it. It's either a giving or a humble exchange. And the flip side is non-consensual abuse. Now, this is where all abuse comes from. Perspective abuse, all of it comes from non-consensual non-consensual giving. It's when you are forced to give and take in that exchange against your consent. So if somebody robs from you, It is non-consensual gifting. If somebody rapes you, it is non-consensual gifting. I did not agree to gift you with my ex. Instead, they took it from you. They have forced you to be a giver against your consent. So that's really what it is. Now, according to forgiveness, forgiveness is forward giving. It's the idea that when we decide to engage in a transaction with somebody, you are consenting. Now, there's two sides to the consent. There is the giver consenting to be humble by exchanging a piece of their vulnerability. They're literally giving their vulnerability by surrendering the power. They give the power to the receiver. Now, the receiver can take, ignore, or reject. If they accept it, they have closed the transaction and it's consensual. Now the power belongs to the receiver and a human connection is formed. They can ignore it, in which case the gift just kind of nothing happens. And then the third is they can reject it, which means the power goes back to you. Now, in the case that's a full consensual transaction. That's in the case of giving. The other side of that, when it's abusive, when it's non-consensual, is the receiver takes from the giver, giving them no choice but to be the giver. Now, forward giving is then when they are in a state of forced vulnerability, they give more. When they give more in a state of forced vulnerability, they actually take back the power. The karma is then balanced because the negative taking of the forced humility is returned to the giver in forward giving by saying, you robbed from me, you took from me, I'm going to give you more. I just took back the power. But who would ever do forward giving to somebody who attacks and assaults? And that's the problem. The opposite of forward giving, the opposite of forgiveness is vengeance. So most of us are vengeful. Most of us think retaliation. Most of us wall up and protect, or we shut down. No one thinks about forgiveness. And that's really what it is. When you understand the transactions of consensual and non-consensual at this particular moment, it is absolutely a question of who has the power, who has the authority. Now remember, the giver is one, the receiver is you, always. So if you have somebody take from you, well, if the I has someone take from them, then the I is forced in a place of humility. The only way to regain their power is by forward giving. Because even though they're giving more of themselves, what they are really doing is taking back the power. And it is the authority and the power and the control that determines who is in charge. Once you understand this transaction, it's how you can gain control with somebody who is a non-consensual abuser. Forward giving literally resolves the problem of vengeance. You're going to pay it forward no matter what. The question is, are you going to pay vengeance forward? Are you going to pay abuse forward? Or are you going to pay giving forward? And if you decide not to pay anything forward, you will forever be at a negative of having that authority, power, and control, which is why after we're abused and we run away, it stays with us. It gets stuck with us because we are forever stuck in a power of lacking, or we are forever stuck in a position of lacking power. That's the problem, because we haven't regained the power back. The only way to regain the power back is through forward giving. Now, yeah, this is where it gets absolutely, this is the transactions of consent. And we see this with words, service or actions, and physical objects. When it's physical objects, it's theft. When it's money, it's theft. When it's actions or services, it could be somebody, this is where rape falls. This is rape, this is forced hugging. This is, I've done a service for you, like I've mowed your lawn, but you haven't paid me back. It could be something like that also. Words is name calling. So here, this is a safe one. This is a very safe one. Let's say you have a bully at school and they call you a name. If you genuinely do forgiveness, yeah, what would you say to them? we would either say nothing and cry in private, or we would call them a name back. That's vengeance. But what if you empathize? Because, and that's it right there. I have said time and time again that empathy is the core emotion to solving a lot of this. We do not empathize. So if you empathize, I remember this one girl. I was in school and we were in an anger management class. I was 12 and I was concerned because I wasn't feeling anger. I was very worried because I wasn't feeling any anger and I should have. So I was in this class and everyone else there did have anger issues. Everyone else there had too much anger. And one of the girls was explaining in detail how she was raped by her father. And she was so passive about it, so indifferent because it was so part of her life that she just spewed all of these details out and forward. Now, prior to this moment, I did not like this girl. She and I did not get along. She was mean. She was a bully. She was horrible until I heard her story. From that moment on, I treated her with kindness and gentleness at every opportunity because suddenly I understood why she was so mean. Who would not be? It changed the relationship for the last 3 years that I was in school with her. It changed everything. She would be in a room or in a group with all of these bully girls. It was her clique. But she always got kindness from me from that moment on. It changed everything. It was amazing to watch how it just pushed through. Empathy changes everything. So someone calls you a name. You have a choice of vengeance. You have a choice of internalizing. And you have a choice of empathy. When you receive vengeance, that is projection. You have taken their issue and you have made it about you, and you have lashed out at them. When you internalize it, you take their problem and you make it about you. And then you stew and you sit inside of it and it eats you alive. But when you empathize, you take back the power. You absolutely take back the power and the control. You become the bigger man. Let's translate that. Let's get the patriarchy out of that phrase. The bigger man. Let's try. You embrace humility. You gift vulnerability. Ironically, it's meekness. It's the opposite of big man. It is actually consenting to becoming the lowest meek. A meek, become a meek. I like that, become a meek. So in order to be the bigger man, you have to become the lowest meek. But you have to do so consensually. It's really, really important that consent is, it's absolutely full consent. My cat just broke a dish. I have to go find out what happened and make sure the cat is okay. Thank you so much. See you later.